All right, everybody, let's take our chairs and we'll get started as we pledge allegiance to the flag, followed by God Bless America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairie, to the ocean, white with foam. God bless America, my home sweet home. God bless America, my home sweet home. Darnell Davis from Aspire to Autonomy. Darnell was here once before. It was like springtime 2019. Gave us a nice talk. He's been active in our Easton Opioid Awareness Task Force and very active in the community since then.
Today, I have a little bit of a crowd participation activity process called Walk in Her Shoes. This is an important kind of an activity for what I'm about to explain. So throughout the room, you'll see some different pages on the tables here. There's a couple back there. And what I'd like you to do is we're going to have them read off the original, the backstory to the situation. But now we need these for them. Because what's going to happen is you're going to choose different pathways based upon what's on each of these, based upon each of these different sheets. Now, there's some that are over there. They're not in the direct order, so you may have to search around a little. So we're going to go with our narrator and begin.
So this is the background of Meg's story. My name is Meg, and I work with my mom just outside of there. My mom was never married, but that's her boyfriend. Sometimes the relationships did not last very long, but sometimes the boyfriend would move in with us. When I was in 7th grade, the boyfriend at the time started looking at me differently. It made me feel a bit uncomfortable at first, but I did not think much of it. Eventually, he began sexually abusing me. I was so embarrassed and afraid of him that I couldn't tell my mom. She might not have believed me anyway, and I felt like it was my fault. After a few months, my mom and her boyfriend broke up and he moved out. I was relieved that the abuse would be over, but I still felt ashamed. I never told anyone what happened. In high school, I never really fit in, but I was tired of being at home with my mom and her boyfriend. After school, I would stay out at a park or the mall for a little while so I didn't have to go home right there. One day, a man named Mike approached me and told me I was beautiful. He asked if he could take me out to dinner. It was nice to have someone notice me, so I went out with him. He treated me to a really nice dinner just about once a week, and sometimes he bought me presents. He really seemed to care about me, and he was the first person I felt like I could trust after many years. After dinner one night after my 19th birthday, Mike told me that he loved me and I could come home with him. He took me to his neighborhood, which I had never seen before, and told me that if I wanted to live with him, he would take care of me. I just had to help out by doing some work for him. When we got to his apartment, he brought me upstairs to his room. I tried to push him off me when I realized what was happening, but he was too strong, so we had sex. Afterward, he explained to me that he would take care of me from now on, and we would help each other out. He told me to wait there in the room. In a few minutes, a different man came in to have sex with me. I was surprised, but I did not know what to do. And when I first tried to push him away from me, he punched me a few times. I gave up and let him do what he wanted.
Okay. So in there's a number one.
At the bottom it says go to abuse/coercion.
Right here. This is where you all are going to go start. And then from there, you're going to choose.
Could I ask the readers to read a little louder so that the people on the line can hear you?
You can just read that, and then you guys are going to go through different choices from based upon the end part of it.
Abuse coercion happens, number one. Mike continues to place you in rooms with men over what you think are weeks. Sometimes Mike brings the men to you, and sometimes the woman in charge, Linda, takes over it. At night, she's just as cruel as Mike is. She slaps and kicks you if you protest too much, and she is especially mean when Mike is around to watch. Linda is kind to you during the day, though when you sit in your room crying, she tells you that all the women feel this way in the beginning. She tells you that you will get over it soon and become used to it after a while. She says the other women use drugs to help, but you refuse her offer. Mike allows you to go to the store with Linda one afternoon to get food for the house. Across from the store, there is a building with a statue of Mary. You watch as Linda examines different types of breads and flirts with the man at the counter. She is obviously distracted, and you can see that you might be able to escape for just a minute. You have not been outside for weeks, and you feel so drawn to the church that you can barely resist. You feel that being in a church and praying for a minute will comfort you at least a little. If Linda is feeling kind today, she will yell at you for sneaking off. But she will have pity because she knows you are young and frightened still. If she gets angry, though, you will suffer a beating from her, or worse, from Mike if you return home late. What happens next?
When you choose, you have to find the corresponding page around the room. And there's a reason for this part of the exercise. You can choose A or B. You can read off which one you want to do. So it says if you want to go to religious congregation number 1, you go find that one, or return the trafficker number 2. Religious congregation number 1, or return the trafficker number. Each of the things are somewhere in the room. So now you can read yours. You don't have to read it out loud. Just read it and go to the next one. You're looking for religious congregation?
Yeah.
She's right here. She has a. Yeah. So now you choose. You can read here, or you can just choose from there. You can read it and then choose which one you're going to go.
Let me read one.
All right.
I'm going to read the religious congregation. The church is quiet and empty, and you kneel down to pray. You are silent for a few minutes, but as you begin to ask for forgiveness, you start to erupt into tears. A priest appears at your side and asks if you are okay. You feel so guilty about the past few weeks and feel deeply ashamed in the presence of a priest. You know he will think you have sinned. The priest asks if you need help. You speak with him for a while, and you tell him that you have been forced to do things you are ashamed of. He offers to help you get away and let you live in the convent for a few days. Suddenly, Linda runs into the church. She is clearly angry. Her arms are flailing, and she is speaking so quickly you do not understand a word. She is obviously not feeling kind today and is anxious to leave. The priest tries to calm Linda down, but it is impossible. If you stay here, she says, she will tell Mike and you will die. If you go back with Linda, you will surely arrive late and Linda will blame it on you. You are terrified of his reaction, but you know he will only beat you. He will not try to kill you as long as you keep sleeping with men and earning him money. So if you want to stay with the priest and risk Mike finding you, go to emergency shelter. If you want to return to Linda, return to trafficker.
Trafficker 1 or
emergency shelter 1. All right, well, I'm going to find emergency shelter.
Which one do you want to do? Emergency shelter? So you guys are going to go to emergency shelter 1 to return to trafficker. And then you picked return to trafficker.
Yeah, so the one I chose is return to trafficker, so you don't want to take the risk of getting beaten. So you return to the house and join the women again. You watch them as they make use of the drugs that Mike sometimes provides, and you wonder if they may be smart for the escape that they use. You suffer beatings from Mike for asking for the simplest things, like a snack before dinner or some fresh air. Because of the beatings, you walk with a limp and a black eye. After several nights, Mike receives comments from customers about your poor state. He takes you to a clinic himself, not trusting Linda to accompany you. Mike stays by your side the whole time. When you go for an x-ray, Mike is not permitted to come along. He glares at you as they wheel you down the hall. Once inside, the nurse tries to speak with you. She asks you questions about what has happened. If someone did this to you, she says she knows of a safe place you can stay. The memory of the most recent beating is fresh in your mind, and you have no energy to try to escape. What happens next? Option A. If you trust the nurse and would like to try to escape despite your exhaustion, go to emergency shelter number 2. If you are afraid to leave Mike without a real plan, go to return to trafficker number 3. I'm going to choose A because, yeah, the hospital seems like a more secure place than taking a risk on father.
So which one did you choose?
I chose emergency shelter number 1. Should I read it?
Yes.
All right. You arrive at a convent and meet several nuns with warm smiles. They get you towels and let you take a long, warm shower. The priest will not be back until tomorrow. You are alone in your bed and you spend all night awake, certain that every noise is Mike searching for you. The next day, you hear Linda's voice in your own name. She is being beaten for letting you escape, and if you come back now, she will not do anything bad to you. You hide under the bed, and the nuns force her to leave. But when the priest arrives, it is clear that it is not safe for you to stay there. One of the sisters offers to drive you to another home further away, but she says you must leave that day. The priest tells you that your only options are to leave with the sister. Staying at the home puts everyone in danger. You think of Linda and you worry that she will be killed if you do not go back to Mike. Even though she was cruel, she was your only friend. And what happens next is if you want to travel to another convent, go to emergency shelter 2. If you are exhausted from worrying about Mike and want to save Linda, go to return to trafficker 1.
Oh, she has trafficker 1. So that's what you just had. So you made the choice. You made the choice to go to the doctor, the nurse, right?
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead.
Okay. So emergency shelter number 2. So I made the choice to tell the nurse what was happening, and she's going to put the person in the emergency shelter. So you arrive at a convent and are greeted by friendly faces. You slept for most of the car ride, so you don't know how far away you really are, but you are less worried about Mike finding you here. You become close to one of the sisters, and you are helpful around the house by cleaning and cooking. You begin to work in a restaurant close to the convent. However, the convent cannot allow you to stay any longer. They give you the number of another shelter for women who have been hurt. They tell you that you can live in the shelter with other women and they can give you counseling services and support. You have been having horrible dreams and you like the idea of remaining in a safe place. Another sister gives you the name of a man who will rent an apartment to you. She says you can still receive counseling, but you will be living in an apartment. You are tired of sharing your space and like the idea of living on your own. Your family will be proud of you if you write back to them about this. You are torn between feeling safe and feeling independent. What happens next? A, if you would like to receive help with your nightmares, go to domestic violence advocate number 1. If you would like to try to make it on your own, go to a housing shelter number 1.
So that is somewhere around here. You have to go find that one.
All right.
And your choice was?
Well, my choice was what Sarah was holding.
Oh, so now you have
That's why I couldn't find it.
This is the confusion. There's a reason for the confusion. It's actually part of the whole activity.
I can figure it out now. Yeah.
So what was it that you chose here?
I chose emergency shelter number 2, which Sarah just read.
Oh,
So domestic violence advocate number 1.
so you got to go to domestic violence advocate 1, or
go to a housing.
we can follow them around. You guys they ended up on the same pathway.
Yeah, they have.
Yeah, they have to find it. That's the whole purpose. You have to find which one you're looking for.
Okay. So I chose domestic violence advocate number 1 for getting help with the nightmares versus finding an apartment to live on their own. So the options, flip a coin. It says if it lands on heads, go to domestic violence advocate number 2. If it lands on tails, go to domestic advocate number 3. Anybody have a coin?
Process is getting harder and harder, right?
Can you flip it for me and see where it lands?
Heads.
Thank you. All right, heads is domestic violence advocate number 2.
I have housing shelter number 1. You meet with Manuel, a man who lives in a nearby apartment. He is willing to let you share his apartment since the landlord will not rent to you directly with your income. You pay Manuel in cash each month and he writes a check to the landlord. Manuel is a good man and he also helps you find a job cleaning houses. You struggle to pay the rent, but you hope that you will be able to save up money soon so that you can get to a place of your own or revisit your old dreams of education or trade school. Manuel often brings friends home on Friday nights. Some of the men get rowdy and occasionally try to touch you or enter your room. You ignore this because everything else is going well. However, one night a man whispers in your ear that he recognizes you. He claims he slept with you one night and that he remembers you well. You do not recognize him as a former customer, but you slept with many men and you do not know whether or not to believe him. You pretend that you do not know what he is talking about, but when he leaves, you cannot stop pacing. Just when you thought you were putting it all in the past, the nightmares return and you cannot sleep. It is not all bad. Later in the week, your boss tells you that you will be getting a raise and working in a richer neighborhood nearby. All week you think about this man. You would really like to ask Manuel to stop inviting him, but you cannot do this. He has been so kind to you, and you cannot admit to him that you were once a prostitute.
When married, then you find domestic
Violence advocate. What are your choices?
Yeah, I'm thinking about it.
Well, what are they?
I'm getting more pissed off.
I know, right?
Retired police detective.
Oh.
We get a lot of abuse cases.
Yeah.
All right, I'll just go with street number 1. All right, if you feel that things are going well and the man was simply drunk and confused, go to promotion. If the fear is nagging you enough to sacrifice what you have gained so far, go to the street number 1. I'm going to go with street number 1.
All right, domestic violence advocate number 2. You meet with another friendly woman who asks you to recount what has happened to you over the past few months. You find yourself frustrated with how hard it is for you to tell your story. She offers you a room in the shelter and you arrange what few belongings you still have. You stay there for several months. The woman encourages you to talk about what has happened to you, and they begin to help you find a job and a new place to live. However, you grow more and more frustrated with each passing day. You cannot find work or a place to live. You feel very much like an outsider, and you have constant nightmares. You decide it is finally time for you to leave, but you do not have many options. You are able to talk to some women in the park while you are out hunting for jobs. One woman has the name of a man who might be able to rent you a room. You find a temporary job that pays cash at a local restaurant. What happens next? If you would like to contact the man about a room, go to housing shelter 1. If you would like to find an old friend to see if you can live with her, go to housing shelter number. I'm going to choose number 2 because track record with men is not so great. So.
All right, you go there.
Number 2.
Okay, I chose the street number 1. You pack one bag of your belongings and all the money you own and head out on a bus to the other side of town. You have no idea where you are. You sleep in a park that Friday night. You can tell by the looks of things that you are in a bad area of town, and it does not seem that there is anywhere you go to stay for the night. You miss work the next day, and you know you are too far away to take advantage of your promotion or even to keep up your old job. The next night, several women in the park who are all dressed sparingly begin to speak with you. After speaking with them for a while, they tell you that you fit in so well and that they make good money at their job. You know they are prostitutes and you know that you do not want to do this again. They offer to let you stay with them in a rundown apartment for a while. You fit in well, and for the first time in a little while, you start to feel at home. During the day, you look for work, and at night, you stand with them on the corners. Normally, the women are skilled at avoiding the police, but after several weeks, your luck runs out and the police catch you. You notice that all the women have gotten away except for you, and you fight and scratch your way out, fearing that you will never find these women again. You are charged with resisting arrest and solicitation. My option is to go to police interview number 1.
So mine's housing shelter number 2. I decided not to rent a house from a random man and decided to go to a friend, somebody that I knew. You are able to get in touch with your old friend, Shiana, who is living on her own in an apartment with 3 small children. You pack your bags and she gives the directions on how to reach her apartment. She is willing to let you stay there for several months if you are willing to watch her children while she works. The arrangement is tolerable, but you do not like Shiana very much. Her behavior has changed since you met her. You feel unsettled and worried about what you will be able to tell your family back home. You are able to talk with some women in the park while you take the children for their walks. One woman has the name of a man who might be able to rent you an apartment of your own. Shiana is becoming more demanding in the time she expects you to devote to her children, and you know it's about time to leave. What happens next? Option 1, if you would like to try your luck with the unknown man, go to housing shelter number 1. No. If you're homesick and would like to return to your family, go to return to family of origin. If you would like to stay with Shiana a little bit longer, go to housing shelter number 3. I'm going to do return to family of origin number 2.
Coming to the close now.
All right. Police interview number 1. The police begin to interview. You are devastated, exhausted from the long night, and frustrated by how hard it is to tell your story. The police officer becomes accusatory. You feel yourself bursting with anger. You tell them that you were not trying to attract men and that you would not have slept with anyone who tried to approach you. The officer decides to let you go without a citation, but you must return home to your family. And the option is to go to return to family of origin.
Number 1 or number 2?
Number 2.
This I have.
I mean, his number. Is it number 1 or number 2? Is your family of origin 1 or 2?
Mine is family of origin number 1.
All right, and yours is ultimately your outcome is.
So my outcome is when you return home, your family is divided. Your mother is sympathetic while her new boyfriend is ashamed of what happened. Right. Your family receives threats repeatedly from Mike. He seems to have ties everywhere. Your brother is badly injured trying to defend you against Mike's friends. You continue to live in your parents' home with your mother's boyfriend's silent disapproval, the guilt of your brother's injury, and a constant fear of Mike finding you again. You feel as though you cannot have a true relationship with a man or get married since your reputation has been badly damaged and you don't know if you can trust again. You continue to care for your brother and eventually his children once he marries. Some days you find yourself content and other days you think of how your life could have been so different.
Return to family of origin number 1. Your mother has broken up with her boyfriend who sexually abused you, and the situation appears safe enough to return. You are alienated from your family after your experiences, and you work to make a living by starting a job in escort services. You feel it is the only thing you can do. You contract a virus from one of the men you sleep with, and your life is shortened. Sadly, this is where your story ends. Go to the morgue.
So, too significantly, they all started down the same pathway. They started with the very same. Thank you both. They all started down the same pathway with the same questions, with the very same start happened, right? And 2 significantly different choices down the line. One was very random, and one was very well thought out because the coin flip meant that you were leaving everything to chance. So when she flipped the coin, it was one way or the other. So you didn't have a choice then. So you left it. You were left with a choiceless choice. And then yours was very calculated. I'm going to go this route, this route. Ultimately, you both end up back home, but one you end up dead. The other, you end up feeling guilty the rest of your life because of what you put your family through. So my name is Darnell Davis, and I'm one of the co-founders of Aspire to Autonomy. Aspire to Autonomy is a human services organization that supports individuals who have been, who are currently being, or at high risk of being human trafficked or exploited. Essentially, we are an anti-human trafficking NPO, right? Now, we have a couple of different things that we do within our organization. Number one is we do have a safe house for women who are seeking shelter, and we're one of those options, right? We're one of those clear options. Hey, you come stay with us. It's a very temporary situation where we try to keep the individuals there up to 21 days. But our goal is to have them come in and be with us for 72 hours, because our goal is ultimately we're going to handle the acute situation and deal with it from there. Generally, our referral partners in this task come from our partnerships with Homeland Security, our partnership with FBI, our partnership with local PDs. And so we're the ones that will get that phone call at 2:00 in the morning. Hey, we've ran into, generally with your police officer, who your police officer would have called should he have had run into us. That's our first show. That's what we've been doing for the last 4 years since our first opportunity to present in front of the Easton Kiwanis over at the Pomfret Club. Since then, a lot has happened, right? The world has been turned upside down. And I remember when this whole COVID thing started and what we were going to do and how we were going to adapt to this new world that we were living in. And so we sat down and we just really tried to create a way to support the community in the midst of all of this. But at the same time, we have a target audience of individuals that we have to support. So everything that we do ultimately is to either expose or help find individuals who are being human trafficked or exploited. We are not solely, and you mentioned Bloom. Bloom solely deals with individuals who are experiencing sex trafficking, female identifying individuals that have experienced sex trafficking. We actually do work with human trafficking altogether. So some of our clients have been labor, and a lot of our clients have been labor, and very few of our clients have also been sex trafficking victims through our safe house. But during COVID, we noticed that there was a problem. Number one, if you remember, we were all required to wear a mask, right? But the least of us did not have access to masks. The government at one point wasn't even giving them away. Hand sanitizer was scarce. If you remember, toilet paper and hand sanitizer were two things you couldn't go anywhere and find any available. Well, I was explaining that during COVID, during that time period, I was told to get off the streets because that's what I love to do. I love being out doing street work. I love working in the community. And I battled with maybe a really bad 2.5 weeks of depression because I saw there was a need. I physically couldn't help be out there in the community to help address the need. And everything that I was wrapped up into helping individuals in need, both our unsheltered and underserved communities. So I got with our team and we created what is called the pandemic response. And the blessing of that was I was able to source out 1 million gallons of hand sanitizer. The problem was we didn't have any bottles. So what I would do is we sat in our living room and actually physically bottle up hand sanitizer. And then we were able to source through Columbia masks, the blue masks and some KN95s. And so that's kind of how this all started. Thanks to the Northampton County, we were able to expand that pandemic response to also include food distribution. So one of the things that we did uniquely during the same time period was there was also the food pantries were suffering because people were out of work. They couldn't get the access to food. Everything, the grocery stores were all. And what we found, we were able to source an organization that helped the community by delivering what would have been considered throwaway food, if you will, but still very good food. We were able to box that up and we were able to deliver 40-pound boxes of food. We did our first 40-pound distribution at Project of Easton and also one in Bethlehem. From there, we did it again. We kind of set up at Centennial Park in the West Ward. right? And we did, I think that the first one was about 200 boxes of 40-pound boxes of food to the community, along with another 200 in Bethlehem at the Hispanic Center. And then we partnered with New Bethany in Bethlehem, and we continue to distribute food throughout Easton by way of Centennial Park. So through that, it evolved into what we call the Community Intervention Service. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about, is our community and what that is now and what it means to the community. What our Community Intervention Services is essentially three parts, three things that we noticed that the community needed. Number one, during COVID, one thing was exposed was mental health. Mental health was the need for mental health or constant mental health support was exposed greatly. We either had people who were just not dealing with it, or they had something that was underlying, that the stress of COVID brought something out that seemingly on the surface didn't exist. The second thing that we wanted to engulf in our CIS program was the ability to help support individuals in the community by way of gaining access. One of the reasons why we presented this Walk in Her Shoes activity was because it involved an individual that needed support. That what if there was someone in the community, if there was someone that instead of having to go to the church, when if it was somebody that was out in the community meeting those needs right there on the streets, that she was able to do, and they were able to get her access to the care and things that she needed immediately instead of having to go through all the different stages. That would have meant something. Maybe she would have lived. Maybe she would have had a better quality of life simply because she didn't have to risk being in one place, then making a decision that I have to go here, because the places that she was, everywhere that she went, someone else made a decision for her, or it was another person that had to give her something in order for her to access. But what if somebody could be there on the streets and get her access to the proper tools and things that she needed? And so between so that's case management and support, and then we have the prevention and outreach. Our prevention and outreach is very simple and right to the point. We have bodies on the street every day talking to our underserved and unsheltered community members. We have people on the streets every day walking around communities, blending into the communities, and they're trained to observe and listen and figure out what's going on and how to engage individuals in the community that they deem in need of those types of support. So when we thought about it, we understand that the underserved and unsheltered community members are often victimized by human trafficking because of the need, whether it's generational or substance use disorder or what have you. We often find that those kind of go hand in hand, those things. So if we can have bodies out there and have them in communication with our community, involved with them day to day, how many people do you think we can stop from being exploited? So we don't just work with sex trafficking. Again, we work with human trafficking in general. So I've actually had the opportunity to work with several individuals that were being labor trafficked, and it was these individuals did not meet what you perceive. What would you perceive as somebody who was being labor trafficked? Anybody want to take a guess? Who would you perceive as being somebody that could be victimized by labor trafficking? That's good. You're the first to actually say that. That's actually in our training. That's one of the ones we go in on a little bit more. But generally, when we say somebody who's being labor trafficked or exploited, we oftentimes are, because of the media, we oftentimes click to one group of people. Where are those people from? That's oftentimes southern border. That's where we hear other. I can't tell you how many times I've heard, oh, how are they coming in through the southern border? Well, I can promise you that the southern border is not our only problem. Because I've actually personally worked with individuals that were brought here illegally from Eastern Europe. And if you looked at them, if you talked to them, you would not tell that they were victimized in the same way, because they didn't look any different than most of the people that we work with, talk with every day. So our prevention and outreach teams tends to blend in and look for individuals that we can serve. Now, we do that in several different ways by getting access to healthcare. You know, one of the biggest problems is access to resources, access to resources, access to resources. Most of us have the opportunity that if we get sick, we'll go to the doctors. We don't have to worry about health insurance. We don't have to worry about those types of needs simply because we have access to it. So we don't have to make life decisions. Most of us, where there's a food need, and if you need to eat, you're not going to think about what do you have to do to make money to feed yourself or your children. You're going to get up, go to the store, and do it, right? So what we've noticed as a community, and through some of our surveys and some of the actions that we've done, what we've noticed is there is a gap in services oftentimes. People don't want to do bad things. They end up feeling like they have to do bad things, or they have to do things that are high risk because they don't have access to resources. So again, our community intervention services seek to intervene into these situations by offering pathways to food, pathways to mental health support, and just help. I mean, I can't tell you how many people during the time period of COVID that we weren't just helping get help and vaccinated and such. How many people just a toothache or a tooth? How many people we've had? I've dealt with a young lady who, while we were on the streets because of her substance use disorder, her teeth were all rotted out, and we were able to help her get the teeth removed and get those things supported. And those things help you in your day-to-day. So our goal is with our community intervention services is to do just that. And so our ask of the community is hey, participate, because our community, one of the things we do is we actually have moments of street outreach where you as a community member can come and you can actually walk the streets with us. We will train you, we will support you in all those different ways. The other thing that we do is we oftentimes, like on November 30th, we're having during the day, we're going to be doing an opiate education. And then from there, we're going to be doing a Narcan. We got our hands on about 30 cases of Narcan. So we're encouraging community members, families, business owners to come out and get Narcan and get trained on how to use Narcan. It's not that you need it. It's better to have it and not need it and know how to use it than to not have it and someone is overdosing right in front of you. You have the tools, and God forbid it's someone in your family because of prescription drugs. And oftentimes the unfortunate that a lot of our children are experimenting with pills and all of those different things, just taking drugs from whatever. And so this education is and another thing we're going to be doing is to our community members that actually might be suffering from substance use disorder. We're also going to be passing out fentanyl test strips, because during this process over the last 4 years, I've actually lost 3 individuals that we worked with that had substance use disorder, and fentanyl was laced. Their drugs was laced with fentanyl, and so that's a super unique tool to be able to have. Not that we encourage the drug use, because we want you to get better, we want you to be safe, but knowing is better than not. And at least if we can save a life, that'd be great. But then later on that evening, we're doing our community food distribution. Our goal is to give 1,000 meals out to our community members, our underserved and unsheltered community members. We've done that on a couple of different occasions. We've had businesses like Amont, Easton help us with this process. We've had companies from Philadelphia where whole teams of people have made trays of food. We then go into we partner with St. John's UCC in Easton and Bethlehem here, and we use their kitchen. We break them down for families, individuals. We don't just drop off at Safe Harbor or we actually deliver to families. We actually have teams of people that will deliver like takeout food to different families in need. And so that's kind of all I have for right now, because I wanted you guys to just know what we've been up to for the last 4 years, kind of give a little bit of a report since we've had the opportunity to share with you at the Pomfret Cup. Thank you. Any questions? Oh, I should ask that. Hey, Dean.
Darnell, how you doing?
Yes, sir.
I hope you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Yeah, I'm moving the laptop because I have to plug it in before the battery dies. But I would ask anybody that's asking questions to speak louder.
Darnell, how are you funded?
All of a sudden, we can't hear.
If you want.
Yep.
Go
I
ahead.
was answering,
The county give you grants?
yes. Actually, during the pandemic, Northampton County and Lamont McClure has been a huge blessing. We were able to do so much from the different grants that the county was able to provide. Now, there were a few that we did not.
So you get referrals from hospitals and healthcare workers and
We have training, I have training with nurses, nursing students. But most of our referrals have come directly from Homeland Security, state police, and believe it or not, the colonial.
Do you have a safe house now?
Yes. It's in Bethlehem area.
Your presentation was really great. I like the interactive nature of it. I also like how it's like no matter what path you took, there are choices. Like illustrates how tricky it is, especially if that person is younger, to navigate those situations. Especially they're desperate for help, right? So they're gonna probably think about the immediate versus the long term at that point. And I think that's critical when somebody not only starts out their life, but trying to get out of a situation that was chosen for them to start in. So I think that kind of interactive, choose your own path really shed a lot of light on how difficult of a cycle it is for a person to break to get back to life, or to even try to get a healthy life. Maybe they never had one to begin with, depending on what their home is. So,
Interesting.
kudos to that. And then I also wanted to know what drives your passion for this.
It didn't start off my passion.
Okay.
My better half.
Excuse me. Excuse me.
You. Yeah.
For some reason, we can hear all the questions, but I can't hear Darnell. I can't hear you speaking. Maybe you're away from us.
Softer. I'm sorry.
You all right now?
So you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Yeah. So it started off with her path. She went to school to become her path herself was unique. If you talk to her 12 years ago, she was not in a good place. In fact, she suffers from substance use disorder, and heroin was her drug of choice. About 10 years ago, about 12 years ago, she actually got arrested and ended up in Northampton County Jail. During that time period, she got clean and she worked her life back up and decided, hey, I want to go back to school, finish my master's degree in social work. During her time period, getting her master's degree, she actually interned for another program that does what we do, named Valley Against Sex Trafficking, or VAST. Her passion was created through that. And once she graduated, she became a licensed social worker, and now since then, she's a licensed clinical social worker, which is the highest place in the field. But during that same time period, she developed a passion for this community because of the parallel of human trafficking and substance use disorder. And well, I'm a habitual entrepreneur, and I recall just one day we had just remodeled our backyard, and I'm sitting out enjoying the fruits of our labor, and she comes out with this big white binder, and I go, oh boy. All right, and she's smiling because I know what she's smiling. She drops this binder on the table, and like, I want to start a nonprofit. And I'm like, you're crazy. Why do you want to do this? You're heading down a pathway where you can make money being a therapist. Go therapist, right? And she was like, nah, I think I want to do this. And so over the years, when you start seeing numbers, I'm a numbers guy, I come from a finance background, right? And you start seeing numbers and you start seeing impact of numbers. You're faced with two things. You're faced with, hey, I can see this problem and wish that somebody else does it and takes care of it. Or you can step in and go, hey, even at a small scale, I want to be a part of the solution. And the more I became part of the solution in realizing that it's the marginalized communities that are involved, that are impacted, and what the definition part of the definition of from the United Nations concerning human trafficking is force. There's keywords: force, fraud, coercion for the reason of exploitation. When you see how the community treats our underserved and unsheltered community members, it becomes a passion because you're seeing that there's an injustice, and anywhere there's an injustice, if you're a just person, you want to fix that problem. And that's how it became my passion, is because I saw a problem that I didn't see many people offering a solution. We saw a lot of complaints about the problem, but we never really seemed to see people go in and be willing to get their hands dirty as a part of the solution. I think you should more or less look at the victim, and I mean that because the victim is going to look the same as someone who's domestic violence. It's a very controlling individual, so this individual is not going to look. They're not going to have their head up. They're not going to look you in the eye. There are behaviors that even whether it's sex or labor trafficking, that once they've been beat down enough, there's a submissive posture that these individuals are always going to have. You're going to see them. Some of them, they're not allowed to walk next to the man or the trafficker, because I can't even say men, because we've dealt with cases where there are women who are more vicious and worse than some men when it comes to sex trafficking. So, but they're not allowed to. There's certain looks that they can't do. There's certain conversations that they're not have. Part of the reason why we created the intervention services is we can have a conversation with you about food, and it'd be a legit, hey, are you hungry? Yes or no, right? But that begins the engagement. Hey, are you cold? Do you need clothing? These are certain things that can happen, that no matter what the human need is, we're able to have that community and offer support. So you ask what can you do on your day to day? To be honest, it's just like anything when it comes to terrorism. See something, say something. There are programs and organizations all across the country. I can share with you guys the human trafficking, but see something, say something, because you will be surprised. It's not just the busboy at the restaurant. Sometimes I've worked with, and it's not the others. I have to reiterate that. It is not sometimes the others. Two individuals that I have worked with that are males, that are labor trafficking victims, that were abused, were clean-cut Joes that you would not have looked at them and go, he's being beat down and forced to work. And they were white American males, born here, rights and all. So it's not always about what the looks are. It's about engaging and knowing they need. I'll give you one last example. The oldest person that we've pulled off the streets is a white female, American born, at 63 years old. And the reason why we got the call is that she finally got away from pimp, her latest pimp, right? She finally got away from him. She was walking the streets, and he had sent his crew of girls to go pick her up, and they tried to kidnap her, throw her in the trunk. But she was able to run away. We got the phone call to help her out because of her substance use disorder around 30. So the crack epidemic really got a hold of her in the early 90s. Yeah, I think when we met her, she was 32 years in or something.
One of their older family members was actually stealing the dog's opioid medication. That's where you don't know. You're making assumptions that it's always somebody that's younger, but this was a man that was, retirement age 66, stealing, taking the dog's medication. If you have the opportunity to take it, we have Narcan in our house. And the fentanyl strips, I'm curious about that because they were saying don't go towards that. So that's now,
the law just passed.
It's just passed.
The law just
It's
passed.
a really good thing.
And so I was actually under the impression it was still illegal, and we weren't able to do it because we do accept government funds,
Right.
but the law just passed where it was illegal as a harm reduction.
Right.
So one of our team members very involved. She's one of our board members. She's very, very involved in the recovery space. In the moment that law passed earlier this year, she hell bent on getting as many death strips.
How many staff do you have?
We just lost 2, so we're up to 5. We're down to 5. 2 of them have gone on to greater things. One decided she wanted to go to school. She wanted to continue her education in acting. So she just recently did everything. She was a little younger, but today, just before I come here, we were interviewing for one of our overnight. We're still looking for people that are going. We would hope to fill some of those spaces with volunteers, but we were at 5 right now.
Well, that's really great, Darnell. That's definitely an overlay. Thank you very much. Very informative. Appreciate the update. It's work that begs for more people. Appreciate that very much. There was one question. So if you recognize the signs of a person who's being trafficked, you mentioned human trafficking hotline. Is that the thing to do, or are there other things to do?
So the safest, because everything I hang out has longer, but it's 888-373-7888. The human trafficking hotline isn't necessarily going to send law enforcement, but they're going to help keep law enforcement in tune with what is going on. So if it's something that is recognized that you're seeing, call the number, report it. If it's bad, obviously, if you see someone being grabbed or something like that, making a phone call to law enforcement is obviously one of the best things to do. If it's something that you figure is happening, you can give us a call. I know that the FBI and Homeland Security prefer not to go through local PD.
Well, we'll be sure to get that information. That number was 888-373.
I want to say that.